Welcome back to the UFC Pros Pick Show. I am James Lynch. He is James Krause. And look who we got here today. Joining us in the driver's seat for Nick Kalikas this week, it is UFC lightweight Grant Dawson, fresh off his vacation. Grant, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me, guys.
Hey, it's good to have you here. We got a really exciting fight night card. Actually, in terms of fight night cards, this is actually one of the better ones. Really excited to dig into that. But before we get into that, got to remind everyone, make sure you take advantage of the promo over at betdsi.eu. Use the promo code UFC. You get a match deposit bonus, but more importantly, you get a signed photo with James Krause or from James Krause. You can't beat that deal. No one else is doing that in town right now. So make sure you take advantage.
Money.
And you make money. Exactly. It's a win-win. Can't go wrong there.
I'm paying you to take my autographed picture, guys. I don't know what else. I don't know how that's a better deal.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you do that. And also, if you do get your photo, take a photo, send it on social media. We'll get it up there as well. The signups are the big thing with the show. If we want to keep this going, we got to get the signups going. So really appreciate it if you'd head over to BetDSI. That is the odds we're going to be referencing here today. No recap of last week. It was Thanksgiving. If you missed our show last week, we did this really cool sort of future odds show with Nick Kalikas looking at some of the odds that are upcoming. So make sure you tune into that if you haven't. But guys, UFC Vegas 44 going down to the Apex. Really exciting card. And the main event doesn't get much better than this. We've got Rob Font taking on Jose Aldo in the main event. Before we get into our picks, let's hear from the pros and see who they're picking for Saturday night's main event.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think Font will win that. Is that one a 5-rounder or a 3-rounder? Definitely think Font would win that 9 times out of 10 in a 5-rounder.
That's a tough one. You know, Jose Aldo is one of the, he's one of the best to ever do it. But Rob Font, he's good, man. He is so good, and he's a big bantamweight. I guess I'm going to have to go with Rob Font. You know, I think he's not to say he's more technical, but I think he's hungrier. He's kind of, coming into his prime. He's getting better and better, and I'm leaning towards Rob Font on this one.
Oh man, $500. I'm putting my money on Jose Aldo. Man, I like Jose Aldo a lot. I feel like he's in his latter stages of his career. He's only gotten better, especially moving down the weight class. He's only gotten better. So, to me, I think he outstrikes Rob Font. Rob Font is dangerous. He does have power, but I just think Jose Aldo is overall just better.
So there you go. The pros all over the place when it comes to the picks, but we'll start with you first. Grant, since you're our guest today, who are you favoring in the main event right now? Rob Font minus 143, the comeback on Jose Aldo plus 123.
I got to take Jose Aldo, especially coming off of his last performance against Pedro Munoz. I just think that was one of the best versions we've seen. And like I said before, I think that if you make Jose Aldo fight is when I think he does his best. And Rob Font is a good pressure fighter, and I think he's going to try to go jab for jab with Aldo, and I just don't see that working out very well for him. He's got the experience in the 5 rounds. I'm going to take Jose Aldo.
There we go. And Krause, which way are you leaning on this one? You going with the favorite, or are you going with the underdog, Jose Aldo?
I definitely see it. I definitely see everybody's pick on Aldo from a betting standpoint. There's definitely value on the Aldo side, but I've been on the Rob Font bandwagon for quite some time now. I've been following this dude's career since before he was Rob Font. And I feel like I would be remiss if I got off the bandwagon now. I like the fact that it's 5 rounds I think that favors Font. If this was 3 rounds, I think this would be a way tougher fight. I like the fact that it's 5 rounds for Font though. And there's a lot about this. I think we could literally just have a show dedicated to this one matchup, but I'm gonna ride with Font, man. I've been on the bandwagon with him for a long time. I think he's gonna get it done. I've been saying this for a long time. He's one of the best 35s in the world, and I stand by that.
This is a really interesting fight. I think we're obviously going to learn a lot about Rob Font in the matchup, and I completely understand him being the favorite. 2 really impressive wins, Marlon Moraes and most recently Cody Garbrandt, and that was a 5-round fight with Cody Garbrandt. So again, Rob Font has that main event experience, not compared to Aldo, but still that's good to put in his cap. But here's the question, like, how good is Rob Font? That's what I want to sort of discover in this, because and he's awesome, and I think we know that, but you got to look at the last 2 guys he's fought as well if we're looking at it sort of from the optics perspective. Marlon Moraes, right? He's kind of fallen off a cliff since fighting for the bantamweight title. He hasn't looked good. I know the last fight against Merab had some success early on, wasn't able to capitalize, lost that fight. How good is that win right now? Not looking so great. The win over Cody Garbrandt, again, Cody's a power puncher. Rob, played he played a very good game plan here, outstruck Cody Garbrandt. That's very tough to do. But what type of Cody Garbrandt are we getting these days? He's going down to flyweight now. I do wonder if that played a bit of a role in Rob's success in that fight, as well as that maybe Garbrandt has lost a step a bit. He had COVID, he had some other issues. That's what I want to know here. But with Jose Aldo, it's been nothing but consistency throughout his career. Do you remember when he fought Max Holloway at featherweight? We thought he was done. I mean, I remember him losing twice to Holloway, him losing to Volkanovski. We thought this was it. And then everyone sort of was very confused as to why he would drop down to bantamweight. And he came down and he made weight against Marlon Moraes. And a lot of people felt like he beat Moraes in that fight. He then goes on to fight Petr Yan. Pretty competitive fight early on. Obviously, Aldo fades a bit. Yan takes over. That's one of those fights that could have been ended a little bit earlier. But I think even the fact he got that championship experience against Yan, I think is another feather in his cap. You're going to be hard-pressed to find many fighters on the UFC roster, period, that have had the resume that Jose Aldo has. And that's one thing I think is going to be key in this fight, because we've seen Aldo go time and time again, 5 rounds. Be consistent. And you know what else is crazy, guys? Like, looking at the age, Aldo's only a year older than Font. It's not that much of a difference, but the big difference is
miles,
the gap.
though. Not the
It's true. It's true. It's true. But then you could also argue as well that, maybe those miles are he's been in those situations. He knows what to expect. One other little key element I think that people forget is that Rob Font got COVID. He was actually offered the interim bantamweight title fight against Petr Yan, was unable to take it at the time because he was still recovering from COVID. So in stepped Corey Sandhagen. I'm sure he's good to go, but still, COVID affects everyone differently. I know for some fighters it hasn't been an issue, for others it has. So that's just another tidbit I want to add into this, because again, Aldo's not the one who's dealing with that. He's the one coming in here fresh. So I think if you can get Jose Aldo at plus money, I think there's absolutely some value there. I get, again, Font being the favorite here, recency bias, I'm sure plays a little into that as well. But Pedro Munoz is a very good fighter, so much so that he actually is the only guy to finish Rob Font in the UFC. And I know that was a couple years ago, but still, I think the fact that Aldo got not only a win over him, but a win over Chito Vera, who we saw get a win a few weeks ago over Frankie Edgar. Those are 2 quality wins as well. So I just think personally, I feel more comfortable picking Aldo here just because of what we've seen him accomplish in the octagon. And Rob Font maybe I'm underestimating those wins that he just had, but I think Aldo is more the tried true, sort of pick here because of what he's accomplished in his career. And there's no signs of him slowing down or fading. I mean, like I said, he's had stoppage losses to Holloway. He also lost to Volkanovski, but he's still competing at a high level, even at his age here. So your guys' thoughts on that, as I mentioned those little tidbits?
I agree with everything you just said, with one exception, and that's discrediting the wins of Rob Font's last 2 opponents. If you look at those 2 guys, they're only losing to the elites of the division, right? Like, so that's the only thing that and he was and Moraes was mauling Devashli until he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But if you look at who's Cody lost to, TJ Dillashaw twice, like.
Pedro Munoz got knocked out by Munoz as well, too, right?
In that list too. Pedro's up in that list too. And I think that was just fight IQ. I don't know. I don't discredit those. Both those guys are only losing to the elites in the division. I think you get a pass on those. I don't know if Munoz is a better fighter than Garbrandt. I think Garbrandt had a bad game plan and got a little emotional. That's neither here nor there. But the only thing that I'm disagreeing with on you is the discrediting Font's last 2 opponents.
Absolutely. And I get it. Trust me. He could go into this fight and look the best Rob Font we've ever seen, and that would sort of be in line with the last couple of performances. I just think the sample size is not big enough from Font to say, okay, this guy's a much more improved fighter. That's what I'm concerned about. One other win I'll mention, which we should talk about because he's actually fighting this weekend, is Sergio Pettis. He's a Bellator champ right now. He's been competing at a high level for a while too, so that's another good win under Font's belt. But again, Aldo, for me, he's proven more to me, and that's where I feel more comfortable.
No doubt.
Him, but
I can
understand. I can understand the Font pick. I really can. This is a close fight, as the odds indicate. Let's get to the co-main event. This is a really interesting fight. Rafael Fiziev taking on Brad Riddell, 2 former training partners, 2 friends, 2 guys who didn't want to fight each other. I mean, I interviewed Fiziev before this fight. That was something very clear to me, that these 2 guys didn't want to fight, but instead it's the fans who get to witness this in person. And we have Fiziev right now as the favorite at -122, the comeback on Riddell +105. Kraus, we'll start with you first. Who are you leaning on this one?
I'm leaning towards is it Fiziev or Fiziev?
It's Fiziev, I believe. Fiziev.
I'm leaning towards Fiziev, actually. I don't, and we'll get into this here in a minute, but I don't see a finish on this one. Like, 2 really powerful strikers. If the finish does happen, I see it on the Riddell side. Riddell finishing Fiziev, because he's been knocked out before. Riddell has just shown how durable this dude is, like time after time after time after time. He's got one of the best chins in the division, maybe, and he might be one of the most underrated guys, if not the most underrated guy in that division, man. I mean, Dober is no tough out or no easy out for anybody. And although that was a fantastic fight, I mean, he showed that he belongs in that upper echelon of lightweight. And Fiziev showed a little chink in the armor last time against Bobby Green. Cardio looked like it was a factor. That's not a factor for Riddell. So it's very back and forth. But gun to my head, I have to go Fiziev. And I know we talked about this, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but I like this fight going the over. This is maybe one of my top plays, and I know this is one of your top plays. I like this fight going not only the over, but I like it going the distance as well.
There we go. Grant, this is your division. I'm sure two potential opponents in the future. Who you see in coming out on top on Saturday?
I like Riddell on this one. And the only reason I like Riddell is because I feel like he's a more complete fighter. We saw against him, against Dober, he's willing to wrestle. He's willing to, when he gets in trouble, get into those grappling situations. And I just haven't seen a whole lot from Fiziev. You know, he's a striker. That's really all I think about when I see Fiziev. He's a really good striker, really great kickboxer, super explosive. But with Riddell, he has the ability to slow the fight down a bit. He can be wild. He's super durable, like James said. And also he can wrestle and he can grapple if he needs to. So I see him getting in trouble, trying to brawl a couple times, getting in trouble, finishing with a takedown. And I think the takedowns are going to edge him out with a close decision, though. But I am picking Riddell.
50-50 fight. Like I mentioned, spoke to Fiziev before this. One interesting thing was when this fight was proposed, Riddell actually called him. They spoke on the phone. They're like, look, this is business. We got to do this. I know it's not for a title. I know it's not for, championship money, but they agreed to do it, so much so that his manager actually had a tweet a couple of years ago, Fiziev's manager, saying this fight would never happen. And here we are, these two guys fighting each other. So first off, props to both of them for putting that aside here.
But didn't Riddell used to be Fiziev's Muay Thai coach at Tiger Muay Thai?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So they used to train together at Tiger Muay Thai. Now, I asked them about that, I asked Fiziev, I didn't have a chance to speak to Riddell, but I asked Fiziev, what was the training like? What was it like getting to work with each other? And he said there wasn't an extensive amount of time that they worked together. It's not like, a Vicente Luque or Burns situation. It's, two guys that were at the same gym, but didn't work extensively. So I don't know how much you can play into that. The last time that Fiziev was at Tiger Muay Thai was a while ago because of the pandemic. So they haven't, either of them haven't been there in a while. So they're both at, obviously Riddell's at, I believe, City Kickboxing, and Fiziev's at Sanford MMA. So that should be a little bit different. But again, it does add that element in there that there is some respect. So we'll see how that plays out in the fight. I'm glad you brought up the Bobby Green fight. That to me was the talking point after the fight. It wasn't that Fiziev got the win. It was that third round where, definitely he took the pedal off the gas and paid the price for it a bit. And I think Bobby Green certainly won that third round in that fight. So the question is, has Fiziev fixed those issues in terms of the cardio and also, the wrestling, like you mentioned, like we saw with Riddell in the Dober fight.
You guys are making me second guess my pick now.
Well, no, it's hold on. Let me finish my point here. But you got to think Fiziev's at Sanford, right? Like there's some really good wrestlers over there. Logan Storley, you've got Burns, who's worked in his wrestling. Like they have good training partners there to work on that stuff. And same thing with conditioning. Like his manager came out and said after the fact that it was a short notice fight, and that's why Fiziev had the issues. We'll see if that is true. Again, I know it's just the manager talking, but we'll see. But everything said, 50-50 fight like this, to me, Fiziev's just shown a little bit more. And I think if it does stay standing, I give him a slight power advantage, and that's where I see him taking over. I don't think he gets taken down. I don't think he has the type of fight he had against Bobby Green. I think you'll see him look a lot better like he did in the Moicano fight, where you saw him go out there and get a quick finish. But I'm with Kraus here. I don't see this fight ending within the 3 rounds. I think it's going to be like not like a Gaethje Chandler in terms of that level of talent, but just a really good striking clinic. One of those fight of the nights that's we're going to remember for this year. So I'm going to go Fiziev just slightly, but this is a 50-50 fight, and I'm just warning people, be careful about this one, because I could absolutely see Brad Riddell winning for the reasons that Grant mentioned here on the chat. So just any other thoughts on this fight, and then we'll sort of move on to the rest of the show.
The play to me is the over. I feel really good about I'm going to play both the over and going the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, might as well get into it. Our prop bet of the week, Kraus. I don't know if you have any other ones, but that was mine actually. And I know we cashed on this the last card, which was the Michael Chiesa and Sean Brady goes the distance. Fiziev Riddell goes the distance is -190. Get into those 2-1 odds, but maybe you can parlay that with someone else on the card, someone you feel confident in. That would be my recommendation. But I just don't see a finish here. Again, Fiziev has been finished before, but I just don't think Brad Riddell is going to be the guy to do it. I think Fiziev learned from that fight, and he's not going to make any reckless mistakes in terms of him getting finished that that early. And Riddell as well has gone the distance a few times too. So I like the chances of this going the distance. The over might be even higher. I have to double check that. Well, I'm assuming it would be if it's not the distance. But I think Fiziev Riddell, that's why I said it's a risky fight. So I think playing the fight goes the distance is probably your best bet if you don't want to lean either way. Kraus, you mentioned that you like that play. Is there anything else prop-wise that you like on this card?
That's my favorite one. That is my absolute favorite one. Another one that I don't know what the line is on this, but I like and we'll get into the matchup. But Kop Zumagov, I like the over in that as well. I don't know what the over in the going the distance is, if you have that or not.
I'm gonna grab it up here. You saying which fighter was? The flyweight fight. Yes, Kop and So it's the over in that fight is they actually have an over at 1.5 that's at -275, and then they have over 2.5 which is -163. So pretty good odds there for the over 2.5.
I like the over 2.5, and you can even go the distance on that. And if you're feeling froggy, parlay both of those.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some really interesting fights on this card. Let's get to our bet of the week. I know, Grant, you have one of those as well. My bet of the week, and I'll start first, kind of being rude here and taking the reins, but I like Jose Aldo. I don't think there's any secret there. I think if you can get Jose Aldo at plus money, again, the championship experience, the level of opposition, I think Aldo's still competing at a high level, and I think he goes out there and proves that, like he did in the Pedro Munoz fight, that he's the better striker. Plus, he's got the leg kicks. Plus, he's got a good ground game, too. Like, we never see it, but if he needs to use it, he's got that in his back pocket. So I think if getting Jose Aldo at plus 120, I think there's absolutely some value there. So I'm going to take him at plus 120. And also, if you remember, last week, if you remember, I like Jamal Hill as well as an underdog, but my official bet this week will be Jose Aldo at plus 120. Kraus, who you liking here for a bet?
I'll give us a couple actually, but I'm going to go with Manuel Kop as my favorite pick. I know he's like -240 now, but I got him at -190. And I think at -190, I like that pick a lot. I think stylistically he's a tough matchup for Zumagov. But I also like the over 2.5 or going the distance in that fight as well. And then my third play would be the Fiziev.
Fiziev doesn't matter. We know what you're talking about.
Fiziev and Riddell going the distance as well. Those three picks I really like a lot. And I'll be playing those fairly big.
Grant, who do you like as far as a bet? I think you might have mine, but either way, it's all good. We got to get your
I
pick.
hate to piggyback off of you, but like you said, anytime that you can get Jose Aldo against another striker in a 5-round fight, with all of his experience, I've got to take Jose Aldo, especially, and I know I keep saying this, but how he looked against Pedro Munoz. I'm a huge Pedro Munoz fan, and man, he dominated every second of that fight. And I think it's going to look a lot like that, where he's just going to be able to get his jab going and rip off these combos. And then, like James said as well, I hate to keep piggybacking off you guys, but Riddell going to decision, that fight going the distance is a pretty clear cut for me, because both those guys are just so durable.
Are you guys not worried about the 4th and 5th rounds with Aldo at all?
No, again, because he's been there. Like I know, again, like the yawn, that's where he sort of struggled there. But I think even at his age now, I think Aldo has shown time and time again that he can. He's been in those spots before. Whereas Font's only been there once, right, with Garbrandt. So to me, I'll take Aldo in that regard.
Yeah, and my thing too with that is, like, he's really only struggled in those 5-round fights against guys that push a ridiculous pace, like Max Holloway and Mendez, Chad Mendez.
Yeah.
Like, with that situation, then we've seen him kind of slow down. I don't think he's going to get pushed as hard as he was in those fights. I think he's going to be able to establish this range. I think he's going to be able to establish his combinations and rest when he needs to. Jan wouldn't let him rest ever. Even when Jan was getting chewed up, he was still pressing him forward. He was still pressing that mid-range where the heart is going, where you've got to do something, otherwise you're just getting backed up. So I really don't think that the 5 rounds is going to be an issue. I think he's going to win the first 3, and then the last 2 are going to be close. But I'm still going to take Aldo.
One more fight I actually just wanted to mention on here, just because we have you, Grant, and obviously James, you're his coach, so you could give some good insight here, is Leo Santos and Clay Guida. Grant, you fought Leo. Do you think Clay has a shot here at plus 160 being the underdog, or do you think this is Leo all day in this fight?
I don't know if James agrees with me on this, but I don't think Clay Guida has a chance. I fought Leonardo Santos.
How do you see Leo winning?
Knockout. I think he'll knock him out, and I honestly think that he'll win a decision if he needs to. I think that his range control and how strong that dude is. I think he's way bigger than Clay.
He
I
is.
really don't see Clay winning a decision. I don't see Clay winning in
This is
any
what
way.
worries me about that fight, and we talked about this on the interim show last week. If you guys want to dive into more detail on it, but I'm worried that Clay is gonna just pick at him. You know what I mean? Like, oh, punch, 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 shot, punch, 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 shot. Obviously, if they get to a grappling, Santos is subbing him. Santos doesn't have a great guillotine though, so that's not a huge concern. The age seems to be catching up with him. The power isn't what it once was. Or at least, especially when he fought you, there was never a point where I was like, oh hell, we got, you know what I mean? I didn't see the power like I used to, and I just worry about. I've seen Clay do this time and time again, where he's just in and out, in and out, in and out, picking shots, and I thought he beat Mark Madsen. I thought he won that fight.
That was a split.
I actually did too, but I think that Madison fought like I don't know what he was doing in that fight. I know we're all allowed an off night. I think that was Madison's off night. I got to tell you, I think that with how big Santos is and with that in and out style, that's kind of how I was fighting him. He was doing a really good job of when I would go out, he would chase me with this double cross and then into good low kick. Sorry, I can't talk today.
All good.
I really think that he's going to win by decision or knockout. I actually don't see him subbing Clay. Not that he can't sub Clay, but instead of pulling guard and going for something, stuffing the takedown. He was so hard to take down. I personally think I'm a better wrestler MMA wise than Clay, and I was having such difficulty getting him down. So I really think that Santos is going to win this one pretty handily.
There we go. All right, guys, good time to wrap up the show. Just want to remind people again to use the code UFC when you're signing up at BetDSI. You get the autographed James Krause photo. You also get a match deposit bonus, so a lot of value there. On top of that, make sure you check out Nick Kalikas on UFC On the Line. I forgot to mention that. Nick is obviously away this week to do that, so make sure you catch him on there on UFC Fight Pass. We're going to have Nick back again soon. Grant, any news you can share with us? Congratulations on, I know in your personal life you've had some great things going on. Anything you can share with us as far as maybe when we'll see you in the cage next?
I'm really hoping for February or March, but right now I got a tweak in my back and I just got an MRI last night, so we're trying to get that figured out first. But I'm hoping for February or March.
There we go. Good stuff. All right. That's it for us here. Make sure you tune in a week today. Actually, we got this out earlier today, but the UFC Pros Pick Show, we do this every week. As we're signing off, listen to a few more fighters give their picks for the main event. I'm James Lynch. He's James Krause. Thanks again to Grant Dawson for joining us here on today's show, and we'll see you next week.
I'm go for Aldo. I always go for Aldo. He's a vet. I always want him to win.
That's a fun one. That's a 5-round fight too, right? 5-round fight. So I'm going with Font by either a late finish or a decision.